2 Apache women were found in the cold. The rancher took them in, gave them the shelter they needed. The wind cut across the plains like a blade the night Eli Turner found them. It was the kind of cold that seeped through wool and bone, the kind that made even the coyotes go silent. Eli had lived on his ranch in northern New Mexico long enough to read the land's warnings, and that night the land was pleading, "Pay attention." He spotted the faint glow first. A dying fire struggling against the wind near the dry creek bed. Then he saw movement. 2 figures, wrapped in thin blankets, huddled close, their shadows trembling like frightened birds. Eli reined in his horse and dismounted slowly, hands open, voice low. Kindness, he knew, often arrived best without noise. They were women, Apache, faces weathered by more than the cold. One stood protectively in front of the other, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. The younger woman swayed, her breath shallow. Eli felt a familiar ache in his chest. He'd buried his wife 2 winters ago after a sudden illness. Since then, silence had become his closest companion. "You'll freeze out here," he said gently. "My house is warm. You're welcome." The older woman studied him as if weighing a lifetime in a heartbeat. Finally, she nodded once. Inside the ranch house, Eli stoked the fire until the room glowed amber. He set water to boil, wrapped the women in spare coats, and moved with the quiet competence of a man who had learned grief but not cruelty. The younger woman collapsed onto the couch, shivering violently. Eli fetched blankets and brewed a simple tea his wife used to make when storms trapped neighbors on the road. "My name is Eli," he offered. "You're safe here." The older woman touched her chest. "I am Lena," she said. "This is my niece, Tawa." As the heat returned to Tawa's skin, Eli noticed the small details, cracked hands, worn boots, the careful way Lena watched the doors and windows. These were not drifters. They were survivors. Over the next hours, words came slowly, like thawing ground. Lena explained that they had been traveling to stay with family farther south. Their truck broke down miles away. A man had promised help, then taken what little money they had and vanished. When night fell and the cold rose, hope felt thinner than their blankets. Eli listened without interrupting. He didn't offer pity, he offered presence. At dawn, sunlight spilled across the kitchen table where they shared bread and eggs. Tawa smiled for the first time, a small, fragile thing that brightened the room more than the fire ever had. Eli felt something loosen in his chest. "You can stay until you're ready," he said. "No rush." They stayed 3 days. Then 4. Then a week. Lena helped mend fences, her hands sure and skilled. Tawa, once her strength returned, fed the chickens and hummed old songs that made the house feel alive again. In the evenings, they talked, about land and loss, about stories passed down like embers. Eli learned that Lena had been a teacher once, before funding cuts and illness forced her out. He learned that Tawa dreamed of becoming a nurse. And they learned about his wife, Martha. How she believed that the measure of a home wasn't its walls, but how wide its doors could open. The unexpected turn came with a knock. A man stood on the porch, eyes darting, voice sharp with entitlement. He recognized Lena instantly. "There you are," he said. "I've been looking." Lena stiffened. Tawa's hand found Eli's sleeve. Something in Eli hardened, not with anger, but resolve. He stepped forward, planting himself between the man and the women. "They're not going anywhere with you," Eli said calmly. "You took their money and left them to freeze." The man scoffed, but the steadiness in Eli's gaze unsettled him. The wind whistled through the cottonwoods as if urging the truth onward. After a tense moment, the man retreated, muttering threats that never found roots. When the door closed, Lena exhaled, tears finally breaking free. Eli realized then that shelter wasn't just a roof. It was a promise kept when the world failed to keep its own. The emotional climax arrived not with drama, but with choice. Eli received a letter from the bank the next morning. The ranch, already strained, was months from foreclosure. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at numbers that felt colder than the night he'd found the women. Selling the place would solve everything, but it would scatter the life he'd built, the memories he'd guarded. Lena noticed the weight in his shoulders. She asked. He told her. That evening, Lena placed a folded paper on the table. Inside was a list, names, phone numbers, community contacts. We have family, she said. Friends. People who remember kindness. Let us help. Eli shook his head. I took you in. I won't burden you. Lena met his eyes. Kindness is not a debt, she said softly. It's a circle. Within weeks, help arrived, from people Eli had never met, drawn by stories of a rancher who opened his door on the coldest night. Repairs were made. A fundraiser was held. The bank agreed to restructure. The ranch lived. On the morning Lena and Tawa finally left, the sun rose warm and certain. Tawa hugged Eli tightly. You gave us shelter, she said. You gave us more than that. Eli watched their truck disappear down the road, the plain stretching wide and forgiving. The house felt quiet again, but not empty. He stoked the fire and smiled. Because he knew now. When you open your door to others, you don't lose what's yours. You discover what was missing all along.